What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we finally got a reveal for the next episode for Destiny 2. Of course, that is Heresy, which will be dropping on the 4th of February. So today Bungie speak about Act 1 of the episode. That includes the general theme of the episode, which does actually look pretty cool in terms of episodic content or season content. Of course, that means a return to the Dreadnaught. They also show off the new game mode that we'll be heading into, which seems to be an interesting mix of something like an exploration space and kind of like overthrow from the Pale Heart, as well as a bunch of other elements. We'll talk about that. Plus, Bungie, of course, show off a bunch of new weapons. We'll finally be able to get adept weapons for the season, which will be interesting. They even show off new exotics, as well as perks, artifact mods. And yeah, they kind of bring the juice today in terms of revealing new content. So we're going to break it down in the video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Firstly, they give a little bit of story context. We're following the Echoes, of course, from the end of the final shape. For Maya Sundaresh in Echoes, who of course escaped, I'm sure we'll probably encounter them in the future. Fikrul in Revenant, who didn't escape, and now a new enemy. And this is largely going to be a Dread-themed episode by the looks of it. Bungie show off the new key art for the episode, which does look insanely cool. You'll also notice the spirit of Oryx right there at the top, and they say Oryx has been brought back in some kind of spirit form by the Echo itself, which landed at the Dreadnaught. So story-wise, it could be quite interesting. Otherwise, Eris Morn, the Drifter, and Commander Sloan will play a pretty significant role, and they say Sloan, of course, now inflicted with Taken Corruption from back in Season of the Deep, has harnessed some new powers, and she's going to transfer some of that knowledge to us as players, which will be cool. They also say they'll shake up the structure of the player journey and the sort of story components in this episode, and they indicated something which sounds like new tech that brings the holo projector to us for vendor dialogue after missions and during quests and things, so it should be a bit smoother with less running backwards and forwards. Next up though, they get onto the new activity, which will be called the Nether. Now this is a 3-player mode in a Dreadnaught patrol zone, and they say we'll be working through different sort of areas of the Dreadnaught every time we run through this activity, with the inspirations kind of being the Shattered Realm, the Coil, of course the Dreadnaught patrol spaces, but also stuff like Overthrow from the Pale Heart, where there's that sort of component of it being in the explorable world. And that's how the Dreadnaught is going to play into this. So this will still be an activity. It won't be a traditional explorable Dreadnaught space, but Bungie have said there will be an explorable component, including a mode which enables more exploration. We'll touch on that more in a moment. But the encounters and spaces will change every time we do a run of this, with multiple different objectives and that sort of explorable part. They also tease that there'll be unique modifiers and that players don't regen health, but health and shields are essentially buffed and treated like a resource. So in this sort of roguelite style. There'll also be ammo scarcity modifiers and boons, which improve our power over time as we engage. So there's almost a kind of survival component to this mode. And they said there'll be several different components and items and materials that we'll need to pick up while playing through this, which will contribute to the episode overall. So there will be a sense of mystery there. Obviously, we got a little bit of gameplay, but we'll have to see how it pans out when we actually get to explore it ourselves. They did say there'll be a match-made version and an expert non-match-made version, and every single run of this, every time we complete a bubble, there'll be a chest. And so considering we'll sort of encounter multiple bubbles each time, we will be getting multiple drops from this mode. On top of that, we'll be able to pick up boons, which are sort of varying stat increases. So minor boons will give smaller stat increases. Those can stack up to 10 times. And are things like health regen and movement speed, for example. Otherwise, there'll be more major boons, which are pretty similar to Traveler's Blessings from the Pale Heart, which give us things like Solar Slide, if you remember that one. And they said as well there'll be the introduction of a Stasis Slide. So when we slide, we'll let out a wave of stasis energy. Here though, let's get on to some of the new rewards. Of course, there'll be weapons and armor, and they show off a new support frame auto rifle right here, which of course will be very beneficial in the new mode itself. You'll notice that this is an adept weapon as well, which is going to be another component of this release. We'll touch on that more in just a moment. There's another aerial denial frame grenade launcher coming in as well called Psycho Pump. This time it'll be an arc variant, so that'll be interesting, and they show off a new perk called Rolling Storm, where final blows will grant bolt charge, and while amplified, final blows will grant additional bolt charge. We can also see the origin trait for these weapons, Willing Vessel, and dealing damage or defeating targets with the weapon gradually grants increased stability, handling, reload speed, and charge rate. And the effect gradually decreases over time, but is gained more quickly when near allies. So That's going to be pretty interesting, and they've said we'll be able to earn the adept versions of these weapons, which come with different visuals, as well as multiple perk slots and an extra origin trait, so they'll put the King's Fall origin trait onto the weapons as an option as well, which is cool. These will be earned by playing harder versions of the activity, of course. So not necessarily something we'll get access to immediately in the episode, but over time we'll start to get the adept variants, which is cool. And they'll also be able to slot something called fragile mods, which are new for this episode, and they will expire at the end of Heresy, but they give an example of perks like Power of Resolve, where rapid hits create Taken Seekers, and these will be found in secret chests in the Nether as well, so it kind of leans a bit more into that explorable part if you just wanted to go hunting for secrets and stuff. There will be some drops which will be generally beneficial in the game. On top of that, these weapons can be sort of attuned to, a bit like Into the Light, through a system called Tome of Want. So unlike the tonic system, it'll be much more basic. We attune to a weapon and we get higher drop chances for that weapon. They didn't mention crafting, so a soft confirmation, I guess, that these will not be craftable weapons, although they did tease that we are going to get weapons from the Vault of Glass return as craftable weapons for this episode. So kind of like the treatment they gave to Last Wish or Garden of Salvation, Vault of Glass will now be included. And so for the raiders out there, that's going to be pretty juicy. They did go into some of the new aspects that we'll be getting for Arc classes. We've previously broke those down from the twids and from gameplay clips, so I'm not going to go into them all over again right here, but they do show off the new artifact, which is the Tablet of Ruin. So for a few of the perks, we have things like Void Flux, and defeating weakened targets with a Void Weapon applies volatile to nearby targets, and powerful targets increase the radius of the explosion. There's also Maligned Harvest, and rapidly applying volatile causes your next instance of void weapon damage to create a weakening burst. Plus there are things like Horde Shuffle, where damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling, and Flashover, and when you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified, and lightning bolts deal more damage. We can also see we're going to get Unstoppable Fusion Rifle and Glaive, as well as Anti-Barrier Sniper and Sidearm and Overload Machine Gun in that first row, so that's the quick preview that they gave us. And otherwise, they show off exotic weapons. So firstly, there's one called the Barrow Dyad. We can see the trait there, the intrinsic, is Panic Response, and the weapon generates Blight as it deals damage, and while not firing, Blight depletes, and the magazine is gradually refilled, and we can reload the weapon to convert stored Blight into Blighted Seekers. Plus it gets Taken Divergence, and hitting 3 different targets generates a large amount of Blight, and Blighted Seekers bore through targets. So obviously this is a very interesting looking SMG, and obviously with strand damage right there. They also suggested that the SMG is a precursor to a new Weapon of Sorrow, and so it would appear that we're going to get a lesser version of a new exotic weapon that we'll sort of work on to upgrade through the season. They indicated that it would be an exotic mission thing. So perhaps a slightly different approach for the seasonal exotic right there, but that's the early preview. And then we have the Lodestar, which is a new trace rifle. Now this will be the season pass weapon, and it has Starlight Beam, where the weapon fires a low intensity arc beam with enhanced stability and accuracy. Plus arc alignment, and dealing arc damage from any source aligns the battery's coils, and when alignment is complete, we can press to disengage the safety and enable hip-fired Starlight Beam to apply Jolt to any targets damaged for a short time, and then aim down sights to slow the rate at which the battery drains. So another pretty interesting looking weapon right there, and of course that one we'll get access to immediately via the Season Pass. So a couple of interesting bits. They don't talk about exotic armor, so I guess we'll simply have to wait and see on that front. Otherwise though, they confirmed the Cold Denial will be returning with new perks, dropping on day 1 as a world drop, I guess. Also, Whispering Slab will return with a few updates. And then the other new component that we haven't heard about previously in any capacity is that there will be a Destiny 2 Star Wars collaboration. Now that was certainly unexpected. But we can see Star Wars themed armor right there, and yes, we'll be able to be literally a stormtrooper. Plus there'll be some other cosmetics like the DS2 shell, and as always, I imagine we'll be earning these with silver purchases and things like that, at least initially. But yeah, 100% didn't see a Star Wars collaboration coming, so give us your thoughts on that down below. Otherwise, apart from minor details, that really sums up what Bungie revealed today. So I hope you found the video interesting, guys. I actually think Heresy looks quite promising in a number of ways. The Dreadnaught looks very cool. I really like the new sort of lighting effects and the updates they've given to that destination. Aside from crafting not being a thing on the weapons, they also look pretty cool. Bungie have managed to reskin weapons in an interesting way, cosmetically this time, I would argue. But the addition of having things like attunement, the adept variants, specific mods that can be applied to them certainly makes that endgame chase more interesting on them. We'll see how the activity actually plays out over the course of time. And I think it's good that they've touched on there being an explorable part of the Dreadnaught. It would have been absolutely tragic if it was just an activity that was sort of housed inside of the Dreadnaught without any of that additional sort of mystery component and having stuff to hunt down. So based on what we've seen right there, for an episode, try not to get criticized immediately right here, but for an episode, I actually think what they've shown off so far looks pretty promising. Exactly how we'll feel in a month from now, well, that's anyone's guess. I suppose we'll find out. Share your thoughts down below. Pleasantly surprised today, personally, but as always, time will tell. So let us know what you think if you've enjoyed the video. A rating really does help us out. Otherwise though, cheers for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon.